Welcome to episode 14 of Mina Narrates. I'm your host, Mina. Thanks for joining me in my library. This episode features part 5 of There's a Killer in My Town by Charlie Blackmoore, aka Beautiful Nightmare. It is the 6th part of an 11-part series I am honored to be allowed to present to you. This series is planned to be released every Wednesday at 5:45 p.m. Central Time, 6:45 p.m. Eastern, via YouTube premiere through October to December 2nd. However, technical difficulties have been haunting my videos recently. Hopefully, with the new audio equipment, we will have many of those problems defeated. However, if they are late, I will get these videos out as close as I can, but they will be premiered. Before we begin, please remember to like, comment, share the video out, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell if you haven't, so you're notified when I release new videos. You don't want to miss any of this series. Now, let me whisper in your ears. Callie, I apologize if I have worried you in any way. That is not my intention with these letters. I'm still very weak after being shot and getting my foot caught in a bear trap. Allow me to delve deep into an explanation of what happened next. I was sitting at the dining room table. Blood dripped into a puddle on the floor around me from the injuries I had sustained. I put the last letter into an envelope, licked the nasty adhesive to seal it shut, and stuffed it into a bag closest to me. I stared down at Callahan's body, my mind wondering why his daughter had never made it to the cabin when police sirens sounded outside. I placed my shaky hands on the table in front of me, laid my head down, and awaited the officers to find us. As promised by Callahan, Dimitri was the first one inside the place. He called out for someone to answer. I groaned in pain, which caused his footfalls to near the room where we were. I weakly raised my head, glanced to my left, while squinting away the blurred vision to see that his face had drained of all color, and his eyes were wider than I thought possible. I could vaguely make out his next actions. He leaned his head closer to the walkie strapped to his shoulder. His lips moved, yet I could no longer hear anything due to the amount of blood loss. Dimitri blurred as he knelt down beside Callahan's body, and my world faded to black. My eyes groggily opened. I blinked until the blurriness went away. A white ceiling was above me. The fluorescent lights were dimmed as to not blind me when I woke up. I glanced to my right to see a machine, the screen monitoring my heartbeat. I leisurely looked around the room. I noticed someone in a uniform standing outside of the door before I noticed the person sitting in the chair to my left. This woman had jet black hair, light brown eyes, and the same light brown skin that my husband had. I hadn't spoken to Marcus's youngest sister in a long time, but it was nice to see such a familiar face in these chaotic times. "Lindsay?" I croaked. "Hey, Dean, how are you feeling?" Lindsay inquired. I couldn't really tell what the look in her eyes was, but it wasn't the girl I've known for years. "I feel strange." "Well, you're on a lot of morphine to help manage the pain. What exactly happened?" "Honestly, it's all kind of a blur right now," I admitted. It was true. I barely had any recollection of what happened. It came back to me in bits and pieces at a time. I remember talking to Ed Callahan, watching him die, and chasing after the person who shot him. My foot was caught in a bear trap, and then it's a blank. Pretty common when someone loses as much blood as you did. "How did you know I was here?" "Kind of a funny story," she lightly chuckled. "I was on my way to the cabin my dad told me to go to when the police flew past me. I had a gut-wrenching feeling that something was wrong, so I followed them. At first the officers didn't want to let me into the cabin, but after finding out I was the retired sheriff's daughter and the current sheriff's sister-in-law, on top of being a doctor, persuaded them to let me in the scene." "Hang on, Callahan's your dad?" My eyes widened. Lindsay nodded her head as she stood up from the chair and slowly approached my bedside. "I thought you knew. Marcus was my half-brother." "No, he never mentioned it." "That doesn't surprise me. Honestly, he wasn't really thrilled about finding out either. Anyway, my dad was lying on the floor of the cabin when I walked in, bullet wound to his head, and you were slumped over a table bleeding out. We had to put you in a medically induced coma so the pain wouldn't get to you. How long have I been out? About 2 weeks. I stopped giving you the medicine a few days ago, so imagine my surprise when you started moving this morning. I'm sorry about Marcus and your dad. I couldn't save them. Don't apologize for something you weren't able to control. I knew my dad's plan for that night. Neither of us had expected the killer to be there. I have to go out so the officers waiting can take your statement, but I'll check on you later. She turned around. I managed to reach out and grab her hand despite the pain in my shoulder. I really am sorry. Me too. She pulled away from my grip and walked past the officers that had entered the room. Great. If it isn't Dimitri and Lucas. What the hell do they think they're doing? Glad to see you're awake, sir. Dimitri nodded. He took the liberty of perching himself on the bed beside my left leg, which caused me to move over some. My face twisted in agony as I held back a yelp of pain. I didn't want to look, but I needed to see the condition of my ankle. My eyes were glued to it the moment I looked down. It was neatly bandaged. However, I could see the black and blue where the bandage stopped. You were too reckless, I told myself. You should have been paying attention. We need to talk about what happened at the cabin, Lucas interrupted my thoughts. I glared at his stupid face. He honestly seemed concerned about the state that I was in. With Ethan and Edwin gone, I couldn't trust anyone. I really can't remember much. Come on, you know how this works. Just tell us what you remember. I was at the cabin, studying over the case files I had when somebody parked outside. I remember carefully walking around outside the cabin. No one was there, so I went back inside. I got shot in the shoulder and told the person to lower their weapons before I was forced to shoot mine. Turns out it was Callahan. I don't know how he found me, but he did. We talked for a little bit. He got shot in the forehead, and I rushed after the person who killed him. I hurried to explain. My foot got caught in a bear trap, and I don't remember anything after that. What did you talk about? Dimitri raised his eyebrow. He told me that I was being stupid by going rogue and to turn myself in. I'll tell you the same thing that I told him. I don't intend on being kept in a jail cell until after I catch the serial killer. There hasn't been one murder since that night, Dean. How do you think this looks to us? Luke impatiently questioned. Yeah, I get what it looks like, but it's not how it freaking is, Collins. I didn't kill Callahan, just like I didn't kill my husband or anyone else for that matter. The only person I shot was with Tanya behind the factory the night Marcus died. We found Tanya 2 days after that happened. She was displayed in the same way as everyone else. The only difference is that Callahan was shot in the head at point-blank range. The blood spatter at the scene confirmed it, and the only other person there was you. I didn't even fire my gun, I shouted. That's not true, sir. Dimitri shook his head. Forensic tested and swabbed your hands before you were rushed to the hospital. There was gunpowder residue on your right hand. Your gun matched the ballistics. I'm sorry, but you killed Edwin Callahan. You two fuckers are not gonna pin this one on me. I had nothing to do with any of those murders, and I sure as hell didn't kill Callahan. Dean Randall, you're under arrest for the murders of officers Callahan, Thompson, Michaels, Phillips, Curtis, Kincaid, Hastings, for the murders of Marcus Randall and Marissa Randall. Luke glared down at me. Are you fucking serious right now? I'm sorry, sir. You are our only suspect at the moment. Dimitri pulled out his handcuffs, cuffed my right hand to the bed railing, and stood up. I grabbed a hold of his jacket and pulled him closer to me. I whispered something into his ears while I reached into the pocket of his coat and took the key for the handcuffs. His eyes grew wide for a second before he regained his composure as if nothing had happened. Luke had already turned his back on the two of us, so he hadn't seen the look on his partner's face. A coy smile crept onto my lips while I watched them leave. They didn't bother to look back as the door shut. I was left with a key to my handcuffs, a pair of crutches beside the bed, and a bag full of morphine. I was actually in a pretty good place despite my plan not involving the crutches. However, this plan would have to do. I kept my eyes glued to the door while unlocking the cuffs. My hands sloppily felt around for the crutches, and once I had those, I made damn sure to take the bag of morphine off the hook and shoved it into my mouth so I wouldn't scream from pain. I hobbled to the door, bending down as far as I could to rummage through the bag sitting on the floor. I grabbed the papers and envelopes, tucked them between my right armpit and the crutch before opening the door. The officer posted at just outside my room didn't have time to register what was happening when I hit him over the head with my crutch, despite the agonizing pain it caused me. I didn't bother to grab his gun. Instead, I hobbled as quickly as I possibly could to the elevators. There wasn't any way that I would make it down the stairwell. The alarms in the hospital sounded when I stepped onto the main floor of the lobby. No one seemed to notice that I was even there as they rushed past me to do whatever the hell they were supposed to do. One crutch in front of the other, and soon enough I was out of the hospital doors. I did steal the first car I could find unattended, and made my speedy getaway knowing perfectly well I had nowhere else to go. I ended up at my house, where I was able to painfully change into actual clothes and not that gaudy hospital gown. The blood stain on the white carpet of the living room brought back the horrible image of seeing my husband laying there with his torso cut open and his organs laying beside him. The kitchen was my next stop after exiting the living room. I rummaged through the pantry and the fridge until I found something to eat, even if it wasn't the best tasting thing. The police would think I had fled town. They would alert the authorities in the neighboring cities and not bother to look here. At least I hope not. I'm currently sitting at the kitchen table, the bag of morphine hanging on the broken wire of our fruit basket, and writing this letter to you. This situation I'm in right now isn't my fault, but everyone refuses to believe me. I am in no way responsible for any of the murders, especially not Marcus's. You know how much I loved him, just like you know how much I love you. I will write again. Dean. Thank you for listening to part 5 of There's a Killer in My Town by Beautiful Nightmare, aka Charlie Blackmoore. For this reading, I'm using the paperback version of the book published on the 20th of July, 2020. If you want to get your own, there's a link in the description. You can follow her on Amazon or follow her on one of her Twitter accounts. Both are linked in the description as well. Speaking of which, she has just published another book of short stories. I'll have a link for you to choose the paperback or the Kindle version in the description. Lucas Luke Nielsen Collins, acting as sheriff, has officially arrested Dean. However, Dean has managed once again to escape capture. What do you think of his theory? Do you have an idea who the murderer is? Do you have any guesses? I'm not giving any spoilers. If you've read the book, please do the same. Let me know what you think in the comments. While you're down there, please give the video a like and share it out. If you aren't subscribed, consider subscribing and ringing the bell till it rings so you don't miss the next part. I want to say thank you to all of you who have subscribed. I appreciate your faith in me and enjoyment of my content. Thank you to everyone who has been so welcoming, supportive, and helpful. I couldn't do this without you. I know I've asked for a lot of input from you all. I just want to give you the best quality content I can. Until we meet again, have a wonderful day or night, and be safe.